This is for period 4 Friday lab folks that weren't here, so they can finish their cylinder practice. You need your cylinder and an ultra-fine sharpie. If you don't have your cylinder from class, then you can use anything that you have at home. Once you have your steps figured out, and just as a reminder, you don't want a number 1 up against white because you'll lose your form. You'll totally lose your form. You won't be able to see your form anymore. So this would end up being a number 2, okay, instead of a number 1, okay. But this is my sad face cylinder, so I'm going to have it be, okay. This is my successful example. These are my unsuccessful examples. Best way to create cross contour lines is to turn your page upside down when you're creating your crosshatch. So remember, this is going to be crosshatch. Okay, and then we're going to start at number 4. A big mistake that people make lots of times, and you can start at this side or this side, it's not the number that I'm concerned with. You're going to start with the outside edges and work your way in, creating gradations. Gradations. Biggest mistake people make, or one mistake people make, when they turn their page upside down, because you get a nice flow of the wrist, they know their cross contour lines are this way, so they start, and they know the number 1, and they create like a fence. Very hard to make this look kind of believable. So what we want to try to do is use our shorter straight hatch marks, and then it's easier to create a gradation with smaller marks. Another mistake people make is they remember from the practice sheet that I wanted you to kind of shade going in different directions. That is so you can best shade different forms. For a smooth cylinder, this ignores the fact that it's the cross contour lines move this way, and so what ends up happening is once the student erases their pencil, because this is fast forwarding to the last step, erasing your pencil, it really does look flat, even if you're decreasing the number of hatch marks you make. See how you lose the form there compared to this. So let's focus on our successful one instead of mistakes people make. This is a step 4. Turn my paper upside down just so I can get that curve more easily, because that's the motion of my wrist. So we'll look at cartoonist work, some comics that use these techniques, and also a friend of mine who's an illustrator who uses these techniques when we talk about pumpkins. On my art survey page on Pinterest, there's also a lot of examples of really great ink techniques. We're not going to have a harsh outline. Again, if I go back to my unsuccessful, harsh outlines flatten your form. Just make it look flat. Broken line with the darker areas. Of course, you know, where it's dark, it's okay to have a line there. But where it's light, you really don't want to have an outline there. I'm doing this a lot more quickly than I would expect you to be able to do it, just for purposes of nobody wants to watch a long demonstration. Notice when I get to my step 2s, when I get to my step 2, I'm creating some more random marks. Make sure it's dry, and then you're going to go over and erase right on top. When we use the quill pen and ink, we don't erase until the next day because the ink is permanent. The oldest illustrations you can find are done in pen and Indie ink and are hundreds of years old. Over time, ultrafine Sharpie will fade. There's also more possibilities for vary of line, which is why we're going to take the time to learn it. There's a lot of cool things you can do. Some people that do calligraphy are excited to, because these are essentially calligraphy pens, so same thing that we're going to be using. Okay. And I just have to constantly remember to follow my cross contour lines. And I have to remember that I'm faking it too. On a cardboard cylinder on your desk, you can't necessarily see a wonderful, like, huge range of values to help you create that illusion. So we make it up. I'm having everyone create a step 1 for their final on top, which means no shading on top, because our light's basically coming from up above, and some people have closed cylinders and some people have open top cylinders. So the open top cylinders are harder to shade effectively, so I don't want to put more pressure on the people that have open top cylinders to do theirs correctly than the people that have wood cylinders. I'm going to, for duration of class, I'm going to leave this up, but I'm going to go ahead for the people that have other work that they need to do today. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate cast shadow. What is a cast shadow? A cast shadow is a shadow that emerges from the bottom of your piece and fades out quickly, and it is basically a shadow that's on the tabletop. Okay? Your cast shadow, you're going to draw it first in pencil, so switch over to your pencil, draw an ellipse, and then a straight line emerging from the bottom of your cylinder. Please pay careful attention to which direction your cast shadow is going in. The placement's really important because it's always opposite of your number 1. Okay? So it's always like kind of behind your number 1 on the other side. If this whole cylinder was dark and the darkest part was in the center, it would mean that the light is coming from the back And that's the only way that my cast shadow is here. Notice this guy has a sad face here. It's because the step 1 is in front. So a cast shadow will never be in line with a highlight, right? Because we got to think about where our light's coming from. You know, if our light's coming from here, it's going to be like tucked in back. So I'm going to adjust this to make it believable. Draw it in pencil. Don't outline it in pen, please. If you outlined it in marker, please find another cylinder on your page or draw a new one and just do the cast shadow on that one.
There's 2 shadows.
Okay, if you want to be advanced, you can do more than one. It's just, but for the test purposes, you can get 20 points if you create one cast shadow successfully. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's a darker one on this side and a lighter one.
Create the darker one, because your step 1 is going to be on the opposite side. If you want to put both shadows in, like someone in here put multiple shadows, cast shadows on their tabletop, and I have no idea who it was, I don't remember, but it was really impressive. I'm looking for one correct cast shadow. Could it help you to put more than one? Yes, if there was a slight error in another area, that would, you know, help make up for it. But you're only required to do one successfully. Okay, so if you had more than one, for instance, take a quick look up here, and I'm so glad you asked while the video's on. Like, this might be a step 7, and this would be a step like 4. Does that make sense? You're like, maybe I had one here that's a 7 and one's a 4.
My darker one's coming out of the right.
That means if your darker one's coming over from the right, where if her dark cast shadow is on the right side, where on the cylinder should her highlight be, or her step 1? Who knows? Danny? The left side, absolutely. So sometimes, like if you shaded this first, look and see where your lighter area is. So if you have like a step 2 on this side, and then step 1, then your shadow should be on this side. Similarly, if you have your light steps on this side, then the darkest shadow should be on this side. If the light is in the center, then it's going to be just like mine, and it's like sneaking out the back. And mine looks like it's slightly this way, so I'm actually going to make my cast shadow sneaking out the back this way. So I'm looking for a believability. Okay, here we go. Hard to remember, cast shadow. Lines for the cast shadow, and write this down if you're going to struggle with this. For cast shadow are always parallel with the top and bottom of the page. Really bad example. Here's my cylinder. See how that tabletop doesn't look flat? It kind of like looks like there's fireworks coming out from the bottom of the, right? This is how it should look. See the difference? We're creating magic here, people. Look at my 2 cast shadows. You also never can compete the values. So if my initial plan is to make my cast shadow like a step 6, I might have to make it a step 7 right up against the cylinder just to make it believable and make that cylinder pop. Otherwise I could blend. So let me show you how I did it. I'm just going to start with really small lines. And I always have to remind myself, parallel top and the bottom of the page. Oops, I'm over here on this side. Okay. And then fade off. Well, Miss West, my whole cast shadow is dark. Why don't I color in the whole thing? This is why. It just starts looking like an oil spill. Oh yeah, and you never want to outline and ink your cast shadow either. So inevitably, you know, someone will do this. Not in this class though. And create like an outline. And maybe we won't. Because I hate to be negative, but the reason I have the what not to do's is because I've gotten these gorgeous drawings before with like a cast shadow that looks like that, you know, and it's like, and you know what I have you do, like on the pumpkins for the final, pre-grade before I'll even grade it, cut out that pumpkin and let's put it on like orange paper or something, you know what I mean? Like, let's just put it on a new piece of paper and create a new cast shadow. And students do appreciate that because everybody makes mistakes, right? So, or they do, or they have all of these lines that are parallel to the top of the and bottom of the page, and then they're in crosshatch mode. So then they create crosshatches, which isn't always the worst thing in the world. If it's done correctly, you can still create the illusion, but I would suggest at this level, don't do crosshatches, because I think I've only had a couple students really do that successfully, crosshatch tabletop, for, you know, it can't always pull it off successfully. So, just like that, and you're done. Erase all your pencils, all the pencil marks, and here is your perfect cylinder. You're ready for the final. Did I follow all of the rules? Here's another one, slightly different. Yours might not look exactly like this, but still create an illusion of 3 dimensions on a flat page. And if that's the case, that's wonderful. It's called personal artistic style, which is great, right? Some people are really heavy-handed and their entire cylinder will look very dark, and that's fine. But I'll still look for a gradation, okay? So, gradation of value. Is there a step 7 in this drawing? And I include that in the cast shadow. Is there a step 7? Is there a... So in other words, you don't have to have every step in your form, you know? Maybe your darker steps are in your cast shadow, which would make sense, right? Because the stronger the light is on the cylinder, the stronger your cast shadow is going to be. Does that make sense? The brighter your cylinder is because of the light, the darker your cast shadow would be. But I know this isn't easy. I know doing these shapes, it's like you'd rather be drawing something more exciting. And guess how many complaints I've gotten about that? Like none, honestly. Because I think students understand that you gotta learn, you gotta start somewhere. But, you know, but wait until you do your pumpkin and it's fun and it's not stressful. That's gonna happen. It's really cool. Once you learn how to draw it, I think drawing is the hard part. You already know how to shade, and it kind of will come naturally by then, which is really exciting. All right. Gradations.